Cheers, everyone. Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. There is a clip going around Chinese social media of U.S. Congressman Seth Moulton, who was at a conference on stage having a discussion about China and Taiwan, where he says that if China invades Taiwan, that the U.S. might blow up the TSMC semiconductor chip factory. Now, when confronted with this, Seth Moulton, his office said, well, no. The Chinese are taking what I said out of context. They selectively edited these clips. And I was just talking out loud. There's nothing serious here. Relax, go away. So what I want to do is play the clip that is going around Chinese social media and then play the longer unedited clip. And I want you to decide which is actually worse, because his contention is that the selectively edited clip is worse. But if we saw the bigger context, it wasn't a big deal. So let me first play the clip that was in Chinese social media.
Very clear to the Chinese that if you invade Taiwan, we're going to blow up TSMC. I just throw that out not because that's necessarily the best strategy, but because it's an example of debate that's out there. And of course, the Taiwanese really don't like this idea.
I'm not blowing up TSMC. If you do that, you have a $2 trillion economic impact on the global economy within the first year, and you'd put manufacturing around the world at a standstill. I mean, this is a terrible idea.
So in this clip, he says, no, this is obviously a bad idea, and the Taiwanese wouldn't like that, right? And so the clip he said is, again, selectively edited. Now, let me play the longer clip. Check this out.
Seth and Mike, this gets back to sort of using deterrence, and how does the chip sort of policies that the U.S. adopts create a deterrence?
Well, I mean, this is one of the interesting ideas that's floated out there for deterrence is just making it very clear to the Chinese that if you invade Taiwan, we're going to blow up TSMC. I just throw that out not because that's necessarily the best strategy, but because it's an example of debate that's out there. And of course, the Taiwanese really don't like this idea, right? So as we think through what this strategy needs to be, we've got to think again about the sort of second and third order implications here of where this leads us. Are we fostering a very successful domestic Chinese chip industry that's eventually going to catch up to where we are, or are we adequately controlling, and sort of keeping them, keeping that lead that Chris just described in place? These are some of the questions that I think we're struggling to answer as we figure out what this economic.
Can I have a little inter-party dispute here on the blowing up TSMC? If you do that, you have a $2 trillion economic impact on the global economy within the first year, and you'd put manufacturing around the world at a standstill. I mean, this is a terrible idea.
I'm not promoting the idea. I'm not promoting the idea, Michelle.
You're just saying making a threat.
What I'm saying is these are some of the things that are actually actively being debated amongst U.S. policymakers. And by the way, if China takes over TSMC, whether it's a Hong Kong style takeover or they take over by actually invading and actually able to capture this thing intact, we could very well face the same level of economic consequences, not globally, but for the United States.
So I find this longer clip much more interesting because toward the end, what does he say? He says these ideas are being talked about in Washington, D.C. All of our politicians, our think tanks, the Pentagon, the CIA, we're discussing what we're going to do if China invades Taiwan. And he's saying, we are discussing this. These are the ideas we're throwing around. So in this longer clip, he's actually giving credence to the idea that there is legitimacy here to this idea, that it could happen. So this longer clip, I think, actually makes it worse for Seth Moulton, not better. And then he says something interesting at the end there. He says, well, if we blow up the factory, That's bad for China. That's bad for the entire world. But if we let the factory stay, it's not bad for the rest of the world, but it still could be very bad for the United States. So what is he saying? Well, if we blow it up, at least everyone shares the pain. But if China gets hold of it by itself, the United States will be the only one to really suffer. And of course, like I always say, the United States, we care about ourselves first, everybody else second. And would we allow the Chinese and the rest of the world to get a leg up on us? Or would we say, no. If we're going to feel some pain, you're going to feel some pain. And that's what I think. We definitely would absolutely seriously consider firing some rockets at that factory if China did invade. Our neoconservatives have shown repeatedly they will screw anybody else if it's for our advantage. They'll sacrifice Ukraine if it's good for long-term U.S. geopolitical goals. And they definitely, and pay attention, Taiwan, they would definitely sacrifice you for a similar purpose to further long-term U.S. geopolitical goals. So Taiwan, keep that in mind going forward as we shift our attention away from Ukraine and to Taiwan. And ask yourselves, are the United States, are we true friends? Are we here for your benefit? Or are you simply a tool of U.S. foreign policy? That's what you need to consider. Well, that's it for now. Thank you again for joining me. If you're new to my channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.